Hey, welcome to the 40 Finance channel, everybody. Today we're talking about Facebook/Meta stock. Now, of course, Meta stock has been blasted here in 2022, particularly after the recent earnings call, where the stock went down at least 20%, maybe even more. But I'm going to give you a few reasons here today. While I think that the negativity is overblown, I think the pendulum swung too far. And I found a few intriguing items just by following this stock that to me look pretty bullish, certainly over the long term, and perhaps as soon as the back half of 2022. Now, full disclosure, I do not own Meta stock. However, the fact that Facebook, Netflix, Google, Apple, all these companies have come down here recently in this stock market meltdown is a very big reason why I've been piling into the QQQ. And I will say that Meta's stock upside potential is a big part of why I'm confident in the QQQ as a solid investment right now. Okay, I'm going to lead off here with the number one problem that I think most people are having with Facebook stock, at least those that are bearish, and that is the concept of Facebook focusing on the metaverse. And you don't have to go very far on the internet to find people who are essentially laughing at that concept and saying that Facebook is a dying company. Nobody likes the Facebook platform. Instagram's is going downward. TikTok's where it's at. That's a lot of the rumor mill that you would get as far as commentary on Facebook stock. Now, I'm no expert on the metaverse, but I have been following Facebook stock for quite some time. And I will say that some of the sales figures and user figures that I've been reading leads me to believe maybe Zuckerberg's got this thing right. And as far as the internet trolls go, they may be laughing right now at Facebook stock and Facebook shareholders, but they may very well be crying later if they don't find a way to get exposure to this idea that Zuckerberg has. Let's take a look at how the Oculus headsets are doing, in comparison to some of the more traditional gaming platforms that have been up there. And you see this Twitter thread I have up here by this person, Jack Soslow. And he goes on to say that 2021 was the year of the VR, and I have one stat to show you why. This year, Oculus sold more headsets than Microsoft did Xboxes. This marks the beginning of AR/VR's predominance. Then he goes on with a thread. Here's the console sales by year. We're looking down here at Oculus, and you've got, 2020, 4.5 million. 2021, not quite double that, but you can assume that COVID and supply chain probably played into these sales figures a little bit. But technically, just as Jack says, you got 8.1 million units over Xbox's 8 million units. PlayStation, in comparison, sold 13.7 million units, and Nintendo sold 20.8 million units. But all in all, when I look at this, even against the lead competitors here, Nintendo and PlayStation, 8 million compared to PlayStation's, 14 million, that's still a pretty strong competitor when you think about how much press PlayStation 5 gets. It's interesting that Oculus is only, half of the population away in this early year of its development. Continuing on in Jack's original thread, he talks about the progress of Quest. You can see how it started with the Oculus Go, a Christmas tree for the Christmas season. Let me enlarge this a little bit. But look at the change in sales pace for the Quest 2 compared to the Quest and the Go. Now, there was a recall on the Quest 2, so that pretty much explains the dip here. But now you're skyrocketing since the recall up to 1.2 million, which is obviously far and away above the numbers that we saw out of the first two renditions. All right, and last part from this Twitter thread, he shows the Apple top charts for free downloads. This would have been December 16th, 2021. And they've got Oculus here at number one over TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat for that matter. So very intriguing. And I know that the first thing that's easy to say, of course, is that Oculus by itself right now doesn't bring in a ton of revenue. And I guess when I think about Facebook and Oculus and the way this audience is growing, it's sort of ringing a bell on some things that we've seen in the past, right? With Instagram and Facebook when they started out small, sort of rumor mill version, no monetization. Perhaps the next step is very close. Okay, next thing to keep in mind here with Meta and the Oculus is the Quest Store, right? So think about the Apple App Store, obviously Google Play Store. And what's interesting to me about this App Store is of course what you think about has become of the Apple Store, the Apple App Store, and the Google Play Store, and how much money that has been bringing in those companies. Here's a chart of the cumulative revenue for the Quest Store, and you can see how much of a proliferation that has gotten here over the past, here's the 1 year mark, if we're in the beginning of 2022. But obviously the model of an app store has been insanely successful. And I don't know a ton about Apple's play in this area, but I will say, as far as I know, the Quest Store is the only VR store that's kind of out there right now, and their headsets are the #1 seller. So again, this kind of crazy idea that, Oculus, it doesn't make any money right now. In fact, it loses money right now. But what could the future bring from this play? And what does it mean for Facebook stock in the future? Now, the next knock on Facebook Meta stock is, of course, the Apple iOS privacy changes and how that has impacted their advertising revenue. And they basically come out and publicly stated it was a $10 billion hit last year. So that's obviously not going to do a ton for your stock price. And, I think a lot of people hear that number and they walk away and just say Facebook advertising business is over. There's no way they're going to recover from this. Facebook users are flat, advertising's getting crushed. This stock is dead in the water. And my comeback to that point is, not true at all. And in fact, switching over to Seeking Alpha here, we have the transcript from the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference. This was early March, I believe, March 10th, 2022. Let's look at a couple comments we have here from Dave Werner, who's the CFO for Facebook. All right, and buried in this transcript, we get some feedback that says by the second half of the year, this is the second half of 2022, we will begin lapping the Apple privacy changes, and at the same time, we expect to continue to improve the targeting and measurement in the new environment. And then longer term on the advertising front, we see an opportunity to utilize more artificial intelligence and machine learning to optimize ads using less data. Then he goes on to mention, Facebook Reels, which is if you're looking for another new opportunity, that's their short form video content that's buried inside of Facebook. And he says, Reels, that's a headwind today in terms of making money, but we think longer term it's a big opportunity. The short form video opportunity is very large, it's very monetizable, so we think that we'll shift from being a headwind on impression growth in 2022 to being a tailwind as we start to put more ads in Reels going forward. Now, it may be hard for you if you're a TikTok fan to even imagine going to Reels instead of TikTok because it is just so popular right now. But there's one thing that's not working out very well in TikTok, and that is monetization. And more importantly, getting publishers money for their efforts, okay? At the end of the day, the quest to get 6 million follows doesn't really matter if you can't make any money off of it, right? This one here was published on February 22nd. And if we scroll down, we talk about it will make it easier for creators, this is Reels, who publish live or long form recorded videos to test different formats. The last one is important because like YouTube, Facebook's looking to use short form option as a complementary channel while also giving creators the opportunity to build community and maximize their monetization potential through longer content as well. Goes on to say that could be a big problem for TikTok. As it stands, monetizing short form remains problematic because you can't attribute pre or mid rolls to specific clips like you can with longer posts. That immediately limits your revenue potential. And while TikTok is looking to counter this with its creator fund, none of these options provide the same money-making possibilities as longer form uploads on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. So you may not think this is important if you're not a creator, right? You're just looking for the funny cat videos. But the fact of the matter is, people create on platforms where there's eyeballs and monetization opportunities. If Facebook is able to unlock monetization opportunities and eyeballs on Reels, then you could see a massive move that way. There's a lot of ambiguity in that statement, but I would say that it has potential. It just needs to continue to grow its user base. Now, I've tried to offer a counter argument for some of the Facebook bear cases, right, or reasons why it can't win. But those are even separate from one simple fact today, and that is Facebook's valuation from a stock perspective is pretty darn cheap, particularly if you start looking for a multiple year hold here. So here we are on Seeking Alpha to look at Facebook stock. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about Seeking Alpha, check out the discount link in my description. Save yourself a ton of money on a 1-year subscription to Seeking Alpha, and that's an exclusive deal just for 40 Finance viewers. But let's go down here to our consensus EPS estimates. Today, this is far after the first quarter whiff, right? Or excuse me, not first quarter, but most recent earnings whiff. So things have already been recalculated, and consensus earnings this year are coming in at $12.42 here today, which by the way is March, right? We still have 9 months to go, and it looks like they could be off a little bit in terms of growth. So that's probably understandable with the money that they're pouring into things. But even with minus 10% on the EPS line, you have a forward PE of 1640. You're starting to talk about like 2018 type of valuation numbers, and then it takes you 1 year from there to get into $14.73 EPS, 1382 on the forward PE. That number would actually start to creep into most people's forecasts, October and November of this year. Then we look at the revenue side, and I would say that most analysts are being conservative right now. But you've got double-digit growth, $132 billion in revenue. Next year, potentially $155 billion in revenue. Price to sales under 5, under 4. If you want to go into the out years, you're even right around 3, and double-digit revenue growth for as far as the eye can see. Put all this together with a stock that has limited debt exposure and a huge pile of cash, and I think Facebook is an interesting stock to look at. All right, guys, so those are my counter arguments to some of the bearish sentiment around Facebook stock right now. Let me know what you think in the comments. So are you buying Facebook stock in and around this $200 mark, or do you think it goes way down from here and the bears turn out to be the soothsayers? I think they're wrong. I think that it's overly penalized, at least in my opinion. Hey, don't forget to check out that Seeking Alpha affiliate offer in the description. Save yourself over $100 on a 1-year subscription to Seeking Alpha Premium. As always, please give the video a like, share it with your friends. We'll see you on the next one.